And welcome back to another podcast with Mr. Hagan. And on this podcast, we're going to look at another example of a good with two real-world events and therefore two determinants and two shifts. So let's say that my good in this case is going to be automobiles, and my two real-world events: United States falls into a recession, and the new car dealership opens in town. So this is going to be the quantity of cars and the price of cars, current equilibrium price of cars, whatever that is, $20,000 or something, equilibrium quantity of cars, however many cars are being bought and sold in the market. And my determinant, well, let's go back and pick a real-world event to look at. Let's start with this one. United States falls into recession, and we want to know what would be the determinant that would go with that. So I think this would be on the demand side of the market. The United States falls into a recession. I think my determinant would be a change in incomes. That is to say, if you fall into a recession, people's incomes are going to go down. That was one of our determinants that we looked at on a previous video. And if people's incomes go down, then they're going to buy fewer cars. And so that's going to cause the demand curve for cars to shift into the left. So demand curve for cars is going to shift into the left. Now, we don't want to do anything about price and quantity yet, because first we got to see what the effects are of the second real-world event. And so what's the second real-world event is the new car dealership opens in town. So my determinant for that on the supply side is going to be a change in the number of producers, change in the number of producers, or change in the number of sellers, however you want to say it. So there's going to be more car dealerships in town selling cars, and so that's going to cause the supply of cars to shift out to the right. There's going to be more sellers, so the supply curve is going to shift out to the right. And so then that leads us to a new equilibrium point, which is where the new demand curve hits new supply curve. What we can see for sure is the price of cars is going to come down. We can see that for sure. There's going to be a decrease in the price of cars in this town. The quantity, well, the way I drew it, the quantity looks like it goes up a little bit, but you might have shifted your demand curve a little farther, or your supply curve a little less far, and you might have drawn it so the quantity actually went down. So in other words, we don't know, and we talked about this again on a previous video. We would say the quantity is indeterminate. The quantity is indeterminate. So let's come over here and record that. We would say there was a decrease in the price of cars as a result, and the quantity, well, we just don't know. It's indeterminate because we don't know the magnitude of the shifts. What are my changes in quantity? Well, the demand curve shifted to the left, so that's called a decrease in demand, and we said the supply curve shifted to the right. Remember, right is an increase, so that was an increase in supply. So if you get a decrease in incomes and an increased number of producers, demand shifts left. Supply, sorry, I got a mistake here. Make sure we check this right here. I said I shifted it correctly. I showed it shifting to the right, but I wrote left. So let's just correct that. That should be that the supply curve shifted to the right because there's more producers. The supply curve shifts out to the right. That causes increased supply. There's a decrease in demand. Prices go down. Quantities indeterminate. This has been Mr. Hagan on another podcast. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you on the next podcast.